Welcome to The Unusual Suspects. My name is Rob Gargiulo. I'll be your host. Episode 46 of the Unusual Suspects podcast. If you've not already done so, make sure you like and subscribe. That way you can be notified for future episodes of the podcast. Joining me today are usual Unusual Suspects. We'll go around the room. First, we have Brandon Aceto, head researcher here at Valuetainment.
Hello, hello.
To his left, we have handsome and smug and arrogant writer from VT.com, Shane Devine.
One half of the fake news democracy destroying website VT.com.
And the other half, part of the duo, Shauner, that is Shane. And we also have Connor Walcott, who is also a writer at VT.com. And finally, normally our producer for the podcast, but today she is sitting in as a panelist, the very lovely Kelly Ann Arnold, everyone.
Thank you so much.
You sound like a beauty pageant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We have a bunch of great topics coming up today. First, Mar-a-Lago raid. Shane's going to cover an update on the Mar-a-Lago raid and the use of force that was allowed, deadly force, in fact, by the Biden administration. Connor is going to talk about Germany decriminalizing child porn.
I regret to inform you the Germans are at it again.
Brandon is going to cover Biden and the gas. What is it? The gas reserves?
Yeah, he's draining our gas reserves for emergencies, so we'll get into that.
Of course he is.
And finally, Kelly is going to talk about head transplants, and I will be covering the debate. There's an update to the viral debate from earlier this month, the man versus bear debate. I don't know if you heard about it, but we'll get into it, and there's an update to that story. But first, if you have not already downloaded the Monect app, you should download it today and take part in the Monect League Championships currently underway. Your chance to win a night of cigars and dinner with Patrick Bet-David at Casa D'Angelo, and then right here at 5990 Live. There's a bunch of our QR codes. Humberto not on the show today, but if you want to make your YouTube channel grow, you can Monect with Humberto. We also have I Am on Monect. Shane, look at that smug, arrogant DC swamp monster photo.
I will teach you how to be smug.
And if you have good articles that might, or news tips that might make a good article, you could connect with either, oh, look at that, Shane or Connor.
Have one.
Yes. If you want to write for Monect, you should Monect us as well. I mean, I'm sorry, for VT.com. You can't write for Monect, but maybe one day.
We have been getting people reaching out, submitting story tips, submitting even proposals to come write for us. So it's helping to grow the team.
Brandon also on Monect, so make sure you connect with him. He can also make your YouTube channel grow. And
Answer
Kelly,
anything else in the world.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds weird. Yeah, I can make anything grow.
I said answer anything else in the world.
my
Get your mind out of the gutter.
And speaking of growing, Monect, it is growing. You should join today. Be part of the Monect League Championships. Again, your chance to win dinner and cigars with Patrick Bet-David here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Let's kick it off with the first story on today's podcast. The first story is the man versus bear debate. So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. Earlier this month, there was a debate that took over social media by storm. The debate, would women rather be alone in the woods with a man or a bear? And there it is right there from CNN. This is the article from earlier this month. Man or bear, a viral question has spawned sorry responses.
They all chose the bear.
Scary? What did I say?
Sorry.
Well, they should be sorry because most of the women ended up choosing the bear. According to the article, while there is no unanimous answer, if you could show this graphic right here, Andres, a good number of women on TikTok, Instagram, and X have made it clear that they prefer the bear over the man. This is reality. We're living in a world where women would rather be alone with an animal that wants to eat it than to be alone with a dude in the woods. In fact, a TikTok video that has been viewed more than 16.7 million times features a man interviewing 8 women on the street asking whether or not they'd rather be stuck in a forest with a man or with a bear. Take a look at what these women had to say.
These women.
That's a woman.
Man is scary.
With a bear.
Well, I've heard about bears. They don't always attack you, right? Unless you like fuck with them. So maybe a bear.
Depends what man, but probably a bear.
100% a bear, which is like terrifying to say, but
Definitely a bear. Some men are very scary out there.
a bear.
I would say a man.
One of those women made sense.
No,
the rest chose bear. It's never gonna be the bear.
Can we go to the follow-up video to see what the conventionally attractive women had to say about this subject.
Well, I want to go around. First of all, obviously, this is a dumb, stupid debate. Nobody, if you were actually in that position, I guarantee if a woman found herself out in the woods and a bear was there, you know what she'd probably be going? I hope a man is nearby to protect me. That's the reality of the situation. My wife and I go camping. She's alone and a bear comes across. First of all, I'm screaming, so I'm not going to be helpful. But I doubt she would rather be alone in the woods with a bear than me. Kelly, you're the only woman on the podcast, unless I'm assuming genders. I guess I am.
Assume away.
Assume away. Yeah. Kelly, as the only female on the panel, your response to the man versus bear debate, which would you rather have be alone in the woods with? Would you rather be alone with a bear or with a man?
Man. But so when I didn't know that this was the question that I saw on social media was, as a woman, would you rather be alone in the woods with a rapist or a bear? And that question, I for sure said a bear. But
well, that's a good one.
That was the question that I saw. That's what I thought this story was. So it's so interesting to me that all those women said bear or man. And I have to tell you guys, like, women are kind of afraid of men attacking them. There's a history for that. You know, that's what society is, you know, and you can easily overpower us just like the bear can.
You know what else has a long history of attacking us?
Any type of wildlife.
I think there's a disconnect, though, between how strong a bear is compared to a man. Because, like, you know, it's somewhat like, it's like a 70-30 odds of a woman versus a man. You know, you could poke him in the eye, him in the nuts, whatever, and, like, him and stab him with a stick, and then you're
you can do the same thing to a bear.
A bear can kill 10 people. You know, people. I guess women are underestimating how strong a bear actually is. It's like a killing machine.
Well, so again, I would, in this question, bear versus man, I would choose a man. I can handle a man, but I cannot handle a bear. If it was rapist versus bear, I would choose the bear because I would rather die a very painful Revenant movie. Leonardo DiCaprio,
I was just thinking
almost
scene.
death. Yeah, I've seen that movie and I've seen that scene. I'm prepared for that, but I'm not prepared to be violated.
And to be fair, odds are you could probably scare off a bear much easier than you could scare off a rapist. Assuming you didn't surprise an angry grizzly with cubs. You can chase them off if you're making enough noise and everything.
I was going to say, Rob, your screaming would actually come in handy. So that would be good.
Well, not according, and we'll get to it. They actually give tips for what you do if you ever encounter a bear in the wilderness. I've never seen a list of what to do in case you encounter a man in the woods. But bear, yeah, get the fuck away from it.
My dad used to take us camping when we were kids, and one of the first pieces of camping advice he ever taught us was, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the guy you're with.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully you're faster than the rapists that are hiding in the woods that Kelly's worried about. Because
that was the question on social media.
Well, is this, and I hate to be one of those conspiratorial guys, is this part of a bigger movement to brand men as dangerous?
Probably.
Is that what this is? We're already in a phase where we're seeing the demasculinization. Did I get that out right? Demasculinization.
Demasculizing.
Yeah. Are we? What is this now? The villainizing further of men in society.
It's definitely gender war. I think gender war is the right way to say it because I don't think it's just anti-maleness that people are promoting. It's also anti-femaleness. You see it all over Twitter, and I think they want both parties to be at war with each other so that people are driven apart, just like they want people to be driven apart in all dimensions of society.
Well, and you see that when it comes to women, when it comes to gender, look at how they have. The war on women has taken over sports, right? The women's sports are no longer for women. They're for anybody that identifies as a woman to participate. They've even taken away the term mother and replaced it with birthing persons to be more inclusive. Then you look at men who the movement of men having babies and men breastfeeding. There is this weird movement where they try and remove women's roles in society at the same time that they're trying to villainize men.
There's also the men go their own way movement, which I don't know if it's still popular. It's kind of been eclipsed by the red pill movement, but that was a movement where men were just choosing to not enter into relationships with women and possibly have as little sexual contact with them as possible. And this was serious, and they were like doing this on purpose. Well, at least they're claiming to be voluntarily doing this and not involuntarily doing this, but So that's more of that, where it's like, I don't, the other sex should not even be interacted with. They're beyond the point, and I think this is the female version of that.
But hey, so it's deeper than that, though. Like it's just like the LGBT stuff. It's not coincidence that all the most powerful people in the world, like Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, George Soros, they're all constantly advocating for the fact that there's too many people in the world. In their opinion, they want slow population growth and reduce population in the world. So it's just like the LGBT stuff. All roads lead back to them trying to slow population growth.
Connor?
Well, if you want to get right down to it, it's not even some giant sweeping agenda thing, at least in terms of this TikTok trend or whatever. It's not about, these differences between men and women that are being pushed by the deep state or the globalists or whatever. It's more about showing off what everyone thinks about, generally, where women's biggest concern is typically sexual violence or some kind of violence committed against them, almost always by men. Whereas men, it's been a thing for a long time. There was an even earlier TikTok trend years ago of women asking their boyfriends, hey, what animals do you think you could beat in a fight? Like, men think about things like, oh, I could probably take that animal and that animal. I'd definitely lose to a gorilla. Maybe a chimp if I had like a stick or something to fight it off with. So men think about fighting bears.
So
women don't think about bears. They think about other problems they might have.
So you don't think social media boosted this thing unorganically? Because I do.
I think it definitely boosted it because it saw it was popular, but I don't think they were trying to. It's more a symptom of the conflict between men and women rather than like the new cause, the new thing driving it. Like say it's a big push to make men seem violent. We're long past that. That's been a thing for a long time already. You remember all the discussion of rape culture and like the 2011, 2012 era going on from there. They pushed that forever. Like, this isn't a new thing.
What do you think, Kelly?
When it was the rapist versus bear question, that one's more like equivalent. It's harder, question to ask. So I'm surprised about the man versus bear thing. And I want to know why they all said bear. I do agree that it's probably like society pushing the narrative that, okay, it's men, it's not your turn anymore, it's women's turn. But I also think part of it is that as a society, we kind of also are turning away from like companionship and turning away from like we like to be what's the word, internal people, and like introvert. Not social introvert and like not socialize as much. So like I'd rather like scare off a bear than just be by myself in the woods rather than having to deal with a man and take care of him or have to rely on someone else. So there's probably that independence thing as well. But the answer for that question should be a man, and it's so surprising.
And if there is any debate over it, please pull up this article that was posted just yesterday. This is from The Guardian, May 21st. Grizzly bear seriously injures man in Wyoming National Park. According to the report, a grizzly bear attacked and seriously injured a man in a western Wyoming National Park. That man had to be rescued by rescuers via helicopter, life flighted out and to an ambulance, driven to a nearby hospital. So in case you're wondering, like, ladies, bear? No. Also, I'm going to go lion? No. Shark? Alligator?
Wait, look at
anything that wants to eat you?
Look at the subtitle
no.
on that article. Also on
away.
Sunday in Alaska, a man was killed as he tried to photograph a newborn moose calf when their mother attacked.
Correct.
You're not even safe with the moose, people.
Yeah, the moose calves is what the guy was photographing moose babies, and then the moose mama fucking killed them.
Yeah. People don't realize how big a moose is.
Yeah, so ladies, add that to the things you don't want to be alone in the woods with. Mooses. Mice? Meese?
The moosin'.
Ladies, learn martial arts. That'll give you a huge edge against most guys because most guys can't fight. So if you want to,
thought you were about to start saying like, "Hey, kung fu to fight off a bear."
I do. Yeah, that is true. Are you going to teach him kung fu? Well, no, you need a knife to fight off a bear.
Can't you just climb a tree?
Gun.
No, bears can climb trees.
They're going to win climbing trees.
Yeah, let's get to that.
Tips for us.
They swim. They climb trees. Everything.
Oh shit!
The bears are so dangerous that the National Park Service released an article entitled "Staying Safe Around Bears," where people ask, "Hey, if I encounter a bear, what should I do?" And according to this article, if you could show the article, it says bears in national parks are wild and can be dangerous. Their behavior sometimes unpredictable. You know why? They're fucking bears. Attacks on humans have occurred, inflicting serious injuries and death. If you encounter a bear, according to the National Wildlife Service, if you could show the next graphic, here's some bear tips. But again, I've never seen tips what to do if you encounter a man, ever. I've never seen that. But I have seen what to do in case you encounter wildlife that want to eat you.
You need to read Cosmo for the man tips.
No. You connect with me. I'll tell you what to do.
There you go. That's a good call, Kelly. Connect with Kelly if you need advice on what to do when you run into a man. From the National Park Service, identify yourself, remain still, stay calm. Most importantly, don't scream.
Show the graphic. Yeah.
They say don't scream. Pick up small children immediately. Make yourselves look as large as possible. I'm currently working on that.
I'm sorry.
Although I don't think it's wide that they're talking about. They want tall.
The hey bear.
Identify yourself.
Yes. Hello, bear.
Hi, I am man.
I use she, her
My women are
pronouns.
afraid of me.
It says pick up small children as if you're like dealing with ants or something.
Hi, Bear. I'm Rob Gargiulo. You can connect with me, or you can eat the shit out of me.
Rip my face off.
Don't forget your pronouns.
They say if the bear is stationary, move away slowly and sideways, and do not run. If a bear follows you, you should stop and hold your ground. So, ladies, yeah, I don't know why.
Stopping.
People actually think that this is I brought this conversation to the table because I'm trying to find the funny in things. I'm tired of, we talked about this a lot. You can be outraged and be angry. And if you don't have a solution for the things that you're outraged and angry about, what are you actually contributing to society, right? Like if I could get on here and just start yelling about the deep state, okay, what's the solution to the deep state? I love RFK. I do. I've listened to a lot of his inauguration speech. I've read a lot about his policies. The problem is I don't ever see solutions to things, ever.
And he's a flip-flopper.
Okay, in what scenarios?
Abortion over the past few weeks, he went from you could get abortion all the way up until the end, till now he's backtracking on that. From here, he was saying that he wasn't okay with the gender changes, and then he started backtracking on that. So it seems like he's going whichever direction the wind's blowing over the past few months.
For me, it felt like he was an outsider in politics, which a lot of people, they like that about Trump in 2016. I felt that way about RFK, but I continue to watch RFK and I continue to not see any solutions presented. We're going to rebuild the American class. The middle class has been destroyed. How are you going to do that? Yeah. And I don't hear answers. So the whole reason that I brought this topic, yes, it's lighthearted and silly and fun. I'm trying to find where we can find the funny in things, because I feel like if we're not able to laugh every once in a while and it's just dark news all the time, it becomes very depressing. And if that's the case, how do we ever get out of this?
Yeah.
How do we ever, we need to start having conversations that we can enjoy and laugh at. And then hopefully we can have conversations that are dark, but we can find the laughter in those things and more people can enjoy those conversations. And maybe that's how we get to a point where we start solving problems rather than just highlighting problems.
You know what Trump, Biden, and RFK all have in common? They're all men.
Oh,
vote Bear 2024.
I am voting Bear in 2024.
See, the true danger lies in what happens when the men and the bears team up, because then we'll be unstoppable. And then we just gotta train them in the game.
Have you ever seen, they trained bears in the circus? They would nail their feet to the pedals of bikes and then whip them as the bears would ride around until the bear went, wait a minute, I'm way bigger than the guy with the whip. I'll just eat him. And then they stopped doing that in the circus.
Would any of you say, if you had to choose between a woman and a bear, would any of you choose the bear?
Does the bear nag?
Yeah.
That's the question. If the bear's like, hey, I need $3,000 so I can hire this holistic healer, then no, I don't need the bear. But if the bear's not doing that, then yeah, I'm all
honestly,
game with
the female
bear.
Bears can be more aggressive than the male ones.
Yeah,
so they say stay away from bears.
That's even worse.
If they have bear cubs around them, those are the worst ones to be around.
Mom rage.
All right, one other question before we move on. Okay, Kelly brought up that somebody brought up about what animals could you beat up. So hypothetically, is there an animal that you could beat up? Brandon, I have a feeling you've thought about this a lot. Like I feel like as you're going through the zoo, you're just sizing up giraffes going, I could take that motherfucker.
Yeah.
What animal do you think you could take, and what animal could you definitely not take?
I think a kangaroo is one that would be close. I think anything.
You could take a kangaroo.
I think that would be a
so
close.
you box a kangaroo.
Yeah, close. That one's close. Anything under a kangaroo I could take, but anything over a kangaroo cannot take. So, I'm not dumb enough to think
lions, tigers, bears.
No, nothing like that. Nothing above the kangaroo weight class.
Okay, see, I go anything slow moving I could take. So turtle,
sloth.
Yeah, watch out. Okay, I didn't need you to jump in.
What's a turtle gonna do to you?
I love turtles, but I had my son had them for like 3 years, and we just like after 3 years, like, what do we do with these things? They're just there. They're in a tank.
They can live a long time.
I know. Oh, I know. We had to find a home for them because I told my wife, I'm like, can't we just release them in the sea? And she's like, no, it doesn't work. So I could definitely take a turtle. Anything above a turtle probably can't take. Shane?
My Irish father always told me that I should tap into my ancient Celtic psychotic rage if I ever am in a situation like that. So I would try to tap into some picked energy there, and I don't know what that could do. So I've had to do it maybe a couple of times, but I don't know. I mostly just I mostly don't think about this question, to be honest. When Connor said, like, men think about fighting animals, I'm like, I think about fighting other men, but I don't really think about fighting other animals.
Okay, Connor, you're the one that brought that up.
9 pints and go smack a wolf.
Yeah.
No, I definitely lose to just about any of the great apes. So that's like gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees.
Oh, gosh.
That, like their psycho strength would kill me in a heartbeat. Like Brandon, I think I could at least get in 1 or 2 punches on a kangaroo if I could dodge the claws. Any predatory thing would just wreck me immediately. We're not equipped to fight those. That's why we invented things that got us away from them. I feel like I'd probably do okay against a horse if it came to it.
Really?
Oh, no.
Wow.
You wish.
If I could dodge the
You
hooves, I
wish.
think I could. Just right around the front. I feel like I could punch a horse a couple times.
I could be like Christy Nome too. I could probably take out a puppy. Like I could definitely manhandle a puppy. I don't want to. I love my dog, but I could definitely.
Well,
take out a
I've
puppy.
been bitten by a dog on my face, and I have a scar, so I can't even handle a dog.
See, if Christy Nome was in your position,
She would have saved me and shot the
put
dog.
down.
All right, let's
Take the
move
puppy
on.
out to the gravel pit, you coward.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for participating in that nonsense. Let's move on to actual issues that actually matter. And this one came out yesterday, that the deadly use of force on the Mar-a-Lago raid was approved by the Biden administration. Shane Devine, writer at VT.com, tell us more.
Yes. So yesterday, Julie Kelly, who's an independent conservative journalist on her Substack, released this crazy information. So Trump has been fighting against the 2022 Mar-a-Lago raid and the whole case about his alleged mishandling of classified documents. He was attempting to suppress evidence that was discovered from that raid from being used against him. So he filed a motion to unseal more documents to build his case that the evidence should be suppressed. Judge Eileen Cannon, who's administering the case in Southern Florida, ordered the documents to be unsealed, and Julie Kelly started digging through them, and what she found was insane. So apparently, the FBI was authorized to use deadly force when necessary, not if necessary, when necessary, on both Trump himself,
The former president.
Stop.
it says FPOTUS, so POTUS, former POTUS, so on FPOTUS and Secret Service during their raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Force or deadly force?
It said deadly force.
Wow.
When necessary. So
Wow.
it said the agents also plan to bring, quote, standard issue weapons, ammo, handcuffs, and medium and large-sized bolt cutters, and were told to wear unmarked polo or collared shirts and to keep law enforcement equipment concealed. So
they
So
were
that
trying
sounds
to
like
start
they-
a fight.
Well, that sounds like they
Yeah.
wanted them to go in looking like intruders so that
Yeah.
if any type of opposition was mounted, that they could justify the deadly use of force that was authorized.
Yes, and they claim that the FBI claims they were in contact with Secret Service before they did the raid, but Secret Service and Trump say they were not notified at all before it. And then additionally, I have a clip to play. Well, first
hold on
let's
a second.
show- yeah.
On that, before we move on, why would they tip off the Secret Service and Trump if the entire intention of the raid is to discover evidence? They don't want to tip off the person that they're raiding because that person may then get rid of the evidence that they're raiding the home in the first place to get. Correct?
Correct, but if they wanted to prevent a firefight and not have, exchange of fire, they probably would have said something. So it looked like they were prepared to open fire if they had to retrieve these documents from a former president with Secret Service.
Also,
agents.
bear in mind, this was evidence that they had already been there to analyze. Like they'd been to the room, they'd seen where it was kept.
The National Archives had dispatched people.
Yeah, they're the ones who put the locks on the door. Like they brought the bolt cutters and had to bust open the door because they lost their own key. Like it's not like Trump had it concealed and locked up. Like they made them put an extra lock on it and then couldn't find the key for the raid.
Now, when you say the alleged classified the alleged, is what he did against the law?
Well, if he kept unclassified documents after leaving the presidency, he would technically be in violation of that. But as we just saw with the case where Biden did the exact same thing, if not far worse, because he kept boxes of them in his garage.
Behind his Corvette.
But that's okay because, well, Biden's an old man. So, you know, his judgment can't really be...
Special counsel Robert Hur was the one that decided not to move forward with charges based on his interview with Joe Biden, in which he said that Joe Biden was a nice old man with memory issues. And then the Biden administration subpoenaed that tape so that it can't be released to the public. Correct?
Correct. And so I don't think we exactly know what documents they were looking for that were in Trump's possession. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I just have a feeling, based on the fact that they are trying to dig up anything they possibly can on the man, that they weren't really that important.
Can I go further down the rabbit hole?
We would probably know if they were, yes.
What if they were there to plant something?
That's very much a possibility, too. Why'd they have to come back twice?
Why'd they have to come back twice? Why did they have to hide their presentation for who they are and didn't announce themselves, plus being authorized to use deadly force?
And they were ready to harass people, too. They were given permission to go from door to door to the guests, checking the occupation status of the rooms, and they were
How is that legal?
planning to pick the locks as well. And they said that they brought a medic with them, and they were told to bring people to a local trauma center in case they were injured during the raid.
Now, was there any type of raid on Biden's home when it was announced that they discovered documents inside of his garage?
I don't remember hearing anything about that. I think it was just a kind of...
But you think
checkup.
you would, if the president of the United States of America's home was raided, you would think that somebody would report on that. So odds are that there was no raid, certainly not a raid to the extent of what happened at Mar-a-Lago, and certainly not a raid that was authorized deadly use of force if necessary.
And what's the justification for that? How could that possibly be allowed?
Papers.
So, yeah.
January 6th?
National
Papers?
security.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, though. The reason why they didn't raid Biden's house to the same extent is because Biden is the president right now. And who is in charge of his Department of Justice? Merrick Garland. So let's play this clip of Merrick Garland. This resurfaced the other day. Let's play this. Yeah.
When is this from?
This is from 2022 after the raid happened.
Okay.
There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approve the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly.
So there's Merrick Garland saying he personally approved of this raid. It's not like this raid was being carried out by some, inexperienced person within the FBI. This is Merrick Garland, famously the man who was snubbed of getting a Supreme Court seat by the Republicans during Obama's last term, the tail end of his term. He feels entitled to a seat on the Supreme Court, never got it, and he has vengeance with Republicans now. And then to make matters worse, the agents raided Melania's room as well as Barron's.
They think that Melania had secret files of national security?
Yeah, I mean, or Barron. Like,
can you imagine? Barron is what, 18, 16, 17?
16 at the time.
18 now,
18.
but 16 at the time. Yeah.
Oh, the things I had
I know, right?
hidden in my room from my mother that she found at 16. Like,
Yep.
I'll just be honest.
Your own forms of classified documents. If you will.
Well, at that time, those documents were on VHS tape because I'm older. So we're talking 2003. Like, they were making the transition of certain adult films to
Retro.
DVD. But yeah, I can't imagine being 16 years old and having the federal government raid my bedroom and the things that they would find. Oh, poor
Insane.
Barron.
Yeah, and then the boomers on the internet have this ongoing myth that they raided Melania's panties. I don't think this is true. I have not seen any proof of this, but it is now confirmed that they did, in fact, raid her room, which just seems completely unnecessary. Why are you raiding this poor lady's room? She has nothing to do with this.
Or their 16-year-old son.
Or their 16-year-old son.
Or their guests that are there, because Mar-a-Lago still operates as a facility that you can, I mean, we've done events there, but you can also stay on site there, correct?
Well, it really comes down to, like, they're just trying to humiliate and inconvenience the guy. You know, same thing as the Stormy Daniels thing. That was completely unnecessary to have her describe the intimate potential details, allegedly, of what they were doing. It had nothing to do with the case, but they're just having him go through that through the public and torture him that way.
Well, it's a series of, I mean, at this point, how do you, as a non-partisan, somebody that's in the middle, not look at this and think that there's anything other than political prosecution going on? Look, you're right. Look at the Stormy Daniels tape. Let's look at, you have the raid, you have the tape. You have
the Ukraine quid pro quo thing. That was one of the two impeachments. The other, the Russia thing, where they spent taxpayer dollars on for over a year. Or even the guy who didn't like Trump, the special counsel person, said, "Yeah, there's nothing here."
Well, look at the tape. Look at what happened this week with Michael Cohen in New York City, where he admits to stealing $60,000. Kash Patel said it best outside of the courtroom. He said, "After all of this, after all of these dates and all of these trials and everything that's going on, we have finally found a victim, and that victim is actually Donald Trump. And the actual criminal in this matter is Michael Cohen, who admitted to 6 or 7 felonies on the stand, and that's the Star's key witness." So you look at this and you go, how many more times do they have to try and prosecute this man for people in the middle to finally go, okay, this is kind of weird and bullshit? Are people that the average person that pays attention, is the tide shifting? Are they finally realizing? And look, I'm not a Trump apologist. I didn't vote for him in 2020. I've gotten mocked and ridiculed mercilessly. Yeah, got it. Thank you. Even that's going to be a clip right there. I had a Biden moment just now. You know why? I voted for him. I'm an idiot. I did it. I didn't like the mean tweets.
How could you?
I'm sorry. Apparently, I'm one of the 80 million, if you believe that number, that voted for him. I'm now looking at this and going, as a guy that was a Democrat my entire life, or at least what I thought. You know, Tulsi Gabbard says, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. I feel a lot like she does. Part of the reason why a lot of people are going towards RFK who were Democrats, because, well, it's not Trump, but it's not the crazy bullshit that the left is currently in charge of doing. I wonder if those people that are in the middle are waking up and looking at this and going, this is weaponization of the justice system. This is political prosecution. This is persecuting dissidents.
And it's just unhinged. I mean, it's clear that from this, part of them was hoping that it would break out into a fight and Trump would do something wrong. All these cases are just dying, hoping that Trump will screw up and slip up and something bad will happen. Like, you can't tell me that with the authorization of deadly force, they weren't at least hoping that Trump would get injured or maybe killed even. I mean, it's like stranger things have happened in American life. JFK was assassinated as president at the height of his popularity.
Well, they killed a president on camera.
Yeah. So, and Trump is far more denigrated in the press than JFK ever was. So to think that this could never happen, you're kind of foolish.
Well, look at how they prepared for this raid, too. The use of deadly force, bring bolt cutters, we're going to pick locks, we're going to kick doors open, we're going to go room to room, wear plain clothes so they can't identify you. Mar-a-Lago is a damn golf course.
Yeah.
Like, you're not raiding some highly fortified compound where, I'm sure the Bin Laden raid had roughly equivalent the amount of prep time on this.
Were they trying to bait them into a shootout?
Pretty much.
Right?
Exactly.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, what do you think if somebody in black t-shirts just gets out of a van, starts running up to your house with guns, and you're the ex-president?
Especially if there's Secret Service there. That means they were expecting to catch other people in the crossfire too. And their goal was clearly, we're going to go blow open a safe, and then there's going to be a piece of paper that says everyone needs to go into the Capitol. It's dated January 5th, 2021.
Just signed Donald
They were just looking for smoking guns in the other case.
This has happened with Hillary, with Biden, with Trump, and there's obviously a double standard. None of them compared to the amount of preparation and aggressiveness as this Mar-a-Lago raid.
For sure. And I think like another possible way to understand this is there's a saying about believing your own propaganda, where it's like basically you start lying and then you start believing your own lie. And I think they have lied so much about how dangerous Trump is and how unhinged he is that I think they actually have begun to believe it, where they actually thought that, oh my God, we better prepare to show up to this place. He could have the place booby trapped and like ready to kill us all. Like, I think they might actually be that insane delusional from their own propaganda.
Well, you look at people that have fallen victim to that propaganda and you wonder, like, there are still, and I get it, there are people with pre-existing medical conditions that have to wear a mask out in public. I'm not one of those people. Again, we've talked about this. I don't go by them and go, bah, like a sheep. Like, I don't, my dad does. I don't. Those people clearly still falling for propaganda, right? And to the point where if like those are the people now that are judging you 4 years out from this pandemic for not wearing a mask. So those are people that have fallen for the propaganda. They continue to spew the propaganda. My question, they've done character assassination. They've tried to do judicial assassination or lock him up. So they tried to assassinate his character with all of the rhetoric and dictator. He's going to be a Nazi, all of the things that they say. Then you look at that didn't work. It made him stronger. Now you look at the political prosecution not working. Trump is leading Biden in 5 out of 7 swing states when it comes to young black voters. We just saw a poll where he is up among Middle Eastern voters. Like every demographic is voting for Donald Trump at this point over Joe Biden. What's next? Character assassination didn't work. Political persecution hasn't worked. What's the next step to try and stop Trump?
Obviously, it's to try to kill them. You know, Tate always said that exact same sequence of events. You know, it's character, legal, then your life. But I wonder if there already has been life attempts on him or not, because the reason a lot of them say, like, remember when there was that protest outside and they he like spontaneously went out, walked across the street to the church, and everybody was freaking out about that after the protest. So they were saying the reason he's able to do that is because they have like such crazy technology that could see like almost like sonar through like all the buildings and stuff that are around him. So the level of security they have is so thorough that I guess that wasn't a threat. But then at the same time, you hear they have had like lasers that if you point somebody give you a heart attack since the 70s. So
the laser attack gun or the heart attack gun. And so, you look at look what's going on in the past few weeks when it comes to global leaders. Look at the president of Slovenia.
Right.
He was what was it?
Slovakia. Yeah. Robert Fico.
There was the assassination attempt on his life. The president of Iran just died in a helicopter crash.
Right.
Yep.
So it's like, hey, these people aren't as untouchable as you think, especially because according to the reports from the Iranian president's helicopter crash, it was part of 3. Right? There were 3 helicopters that were traveling, and his was the only one that went down. Did anybody else read that?
No.
Okay, no, just me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well then
nice
maybe I found that on Reddit conspiracy theories. I don't know.
Truefactsimadeup.com.
Yeah, that's right. I read it on Twitter, so it must be true.
You should write for VT.com.
Okay, so Connor, your thoughts? Political prosecution not working. Character assassination has not worked. What's the next move to try and stop Trump?
Yeah, well, a couple weeks ago, Shane, I think, talked about Democratic strategist James Carville saying you need to do the wet work, and anyone who's up on terminology knows that wet work is just assassinations
in the CIA's language. And he saes that in the clip. He goes, yeah, do the wet work. It's an old CIA term. It means, do some assassinations. And he says it to Anderson Cooper live on CNN, and Anderson Cooper just goes, laughs.
So very clearly that's the plan. Or even if it's not the plan, it's the hope.
Yeah, it's the dog whistle.
Yeah, when you see these people carry out these attacks, whether it's FICO in Slovakia or, and a lot of these other ones you've seen, it's always a lone wolf. The
MK Ultra lone wolf.
Yeah, this guy who manages to have no ties to anything, no background of any kind, one day wakes up and decides he's going to assassinate a political leader. Think about the guy outside Brett Kavanaugh's house.
Or the guy who shot Steve Scalise at that baseball
game.
How
about Stephen Paddock, the Las Vegas shooter at the Harvest 91 Music Festival?
With the most guns anyone's ever seen.
Or, that guy who dressed up like a federal agent and infiltrated RFK's security force.
Look at Saran, who killed RFK's father and then says, I have no memory of doing it. And then you look at all the evidence. Like when you hear RFK Jr. talk about the assassination of his father, including the amount of bullets that were shot, the amount of bullets that they recovered, and you go, wait a minute, none of this really adds up to the fact that RFK Jr. met his father's assassinator in prison and attempted to free him. He went to the parole board and advocated for his freedom, and then Gavin Newsom said no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Sir Aaron had no gunpowder on his hand either. Yeah. So his gun didn't even fire off. It was somebody else in the room.
And then think about Lee Harvey Oswald with JFK and like all these things. It's someone takes out the president or a very high-powered official or makes an attempt on their life, but they have no ties to any groups that might want to see them taken out. It's just one person.
Well, it's like a cliche
himself.
thing. It's like Lee Harvey Oswald was just a communist. Sirhan was didn't like the religion. He was like a extremist or something with the religion against RFK. So it's like a cliche excuse for the patsy.
I agree with Shane that like they're absolutely vulnerable to attacks, but I don't think it's going to be something like a helicopter crash or whatever. It's going to be something sneaky like the Mar-a-Lago raid. Being undetectable, not announcing yourself, being authorized to use deadly force, like looking for that aggressive confrontation.
Creating
and
a
that
chaotic-
is how we're going to hear
Yes.
if it
And
happens.
at this point, any way that Donald Trump passes away, let's say he dies of a heart attack at the age of 90, there's going to be a sizable chunk of people who are convinced he was taken out through some kind of nefarious...
My mother.
Exactly.
Yes, and others.
It's like, this is, Donald Trump wins, he serves the next 4 years, he retires to private life, lives into a ripe old age, and then passes away of natural causes. Oh, deep state assassination.
The American people would call it out if something egregious happened. It will only be able to happen if it's something sneaky like this, where they plan it and the FBI goes in and it's an accident. That's
Yeah,
the
but then
only
anything
way.
that comes out from that, they'll claim as national security.
Exactly.
We can't give you the information.
Exactly.
Look at the JFK files. Every single person that was attached to that coup is dead.
Yeah.
Who are you protecting by keeping those files secret at this day? Same thing with 9/11. We cannot tell you the truth about the collapse, the structural collapse of Building 7 to protect national security. Who are you still protecting?
Also, during JFK and during 9/11, still, they had a very tight control over the media, over the information waves. There was the legacy media was in full control over radio and television. Now there's independent information, and if an assassination were to happen now, everyone would freak out about it. But why do you think they want to censor everything before the election? I have another story where, this is on VT.com, and so is this, by the way, where Soros just poured $80 million into a group, or 200 nonprofit groups that are all calling on the tech companies to up their censorship game for the 2024 election. So Soros just poured 80 million into making sure that the 2024 election across all social media is, that they're completely policing everyone's speech. And we saw already with Instagram rolling out that feature where now you have to go into your settings and manually check on I want to see political content now. So there you have it. I mean, they're thinking that they could get away with some sneaky stuff, whether it's an actual outright assassination or just rigging the election, if they can silence the people who will call it out.
And speaking of the censorship programs like that, it's not just here that they're doing it. It's also going on in Germany. We have a report on that where the AfD party, the Alternative for Deutschland, which is like a sort of a culturally conservative party over there, I believe has been flagged as some kind of extremist organization now.
Yeah, they've gone through multiple layers of court trying to fight this, but they have just lost yet again, where the court ruled that actually AfD is in fact a threat to democracy and can be surveilled as a domestic terrorist organization. This is like their Republican Party, basically.
Well, let's move along, but stay on Germany.
That's why I bring that up. With your permission, Rob,
Yes,
love to segue into my story as well.
Yes, let's go to Connor because I saw this story. This was also up on VT.com. You can read the entire article, but Germany has now made child pornography, possession of it, a misdemeanor, reducing the criminal penalties from a felony to a misdemeanor. Connor, tell us more.
Yes, as I said before, unfortunately, it seems the Germans are at it again. Like Rob mentioned, we have this as a full report on VT.com. If you want more details, you can go there and check that out. But last week, the German parliament voted to lower the criminal penalties for possession of child pornography and child sex abuse material from a felony to a misdemeanor. Basically makes it so the minimum sentencing has been reduced to just a few months now instead of years as it should be. Or, maybe death for people who own child porn, but that's a bit extreme, I guess. Far be it from the Germans to ever take things to extremes.
Send them to the woods with a bear.
Yeah. That solves the rapist problem.
Would you rather be in the woods with a pedophile or a bear?
I'd love to see the bear destroy the pedophile, but that would just educate people on how scary bears are.
I'll take the pedophile because then I can kill him.
Yeah.
What?
There you go.
You're also not a victim because you're an of age, like
Exactly.
You're
Pick
fine
on-
with the
pick on
pedophile.
someone your own size.
Yeah.
I got you.
But the story was first broken by Redux Magazine, which is like a women and family-oriented publication that advances women's issues. They're the first ones who broke this. According to the text of the bill, translated from German into English, possession and acquisition.
You have to say it angrily like Germans do.
Well, can't be too German there. It tends to be threatening on the internet when you speak angrily in German. Possession and acquisition should in the future be punishable with a minimum penalty of 3 months imprisonment and distribution with a minimum penalty of 6 months imprisonment. The offenses regulated in the sections of the criminal code are therefore classified as misdemeanors and not as crimes.
Why?
I'll get to their explanation here, but possession of child sex abuse materials first made a felony in Germany in 2021, which
it took very long to do.
Only 2021, but that made the minimum sentence for it a year. This next post is from Libs of TikTok, who, like many other people on social media, picked up the story. We're talking about how outraged they are. They all got community noted. And if you can see that highlighted portion at the bottom, this is a complete misrepresentation. The law prevents people from going to jail for simply reporting child porn. Teachers, parents, etc. would otherwise be unable to present proof without going to jail. The community note itself is incorrect, and if you go look at some of these posts now, the community note has been removed because it seems like it was all political activists who were community noting these posts. Basically, what they're trying to say is that the intention behind the law was to make it so that, okay, say you're, a teacher and you happen to see on a student's phone or something, you intercept people distributing child porn. You'd have to download that or possess it in some way to bring it to the cops in order to get that, investigated. And there were no legal protections established for parents or teachers or anyone else who did that. And, the other goal they wanted to protect was children who make it of themselves, sometimes under coercion by online predators. They take pictures of themselves and then they send them out. That's technically distribution of child porn. No legal protections for them existed. But the reason the community note is so ridiculous is because that's not what the law does. Right. The law does not make special carve-outs that say, hey, obviously we don't want to imprison the people reporting it. Obviously we're not going after victims here. All the law does is, as a blanket reduction, anybody with child porn is now guilty of a misdemeanor and not a felony. And that is completely ridiculous. And the people who know that best are pro-pedophile activist groups, including one that Redux notes. It is called Krum 13 or K13, which is, quote, a self-help organization for pedosexuals. They're celebrated...
Wait, what's a pedosexual?
The nicer term for pedophile.
So that's somewhere between minor attracted person and pedophile.
Yes.
So they haven't gone full-blown map yet.
No, these are people who believe that being a pedophile is a legitimate sexual orientation. The guy who started this group has been convicted and sent to jail for child porn multiple times.
He looks as you would expect.
Oh my God.
They're stumping for having the age of consent in Germany reduced to 12 years old. The fact that these people are so open and free about this and fear no consequence shows how horrific things have gotten,
as they would say.
Yeah,
they've been emboldened by left-wing governments.
Yeah. Just a quote from this guy from a 2014 interview he did. The taboo of pedophilia must finally be broken at all levels of society. If a pedophile can come out without fear of exclusion or even demonization, this is the best prevention against child sex abuse. Therefore, he talks about, there are many ways in which children can initiate sexual relationships with adults, and this is a good thing that should be legally defensible.
So the kids are asking for it.
The kids are asking for it, is what he says, which the fact that this guy is not buried in a deep, dark hole somewhere, again, just goes to show how emboldened things are. The bill will take effect in a few months, but it's far from the first time Germany has had to deal with this kind of thing. Just a couple months ago, another Redux article that was reported, we don't have that to throw up there. A 52-year-old male identifying as transgender was given a lighter sentence for possession of child porn after arguing that he only retained the materials to help him explore his gender identity. So
Come on.
he argued, because I'm becoming a woman, I needed to watch videos of little children to help me explore my gender identity. And the judge bought that, and he was, free to go on that.
Yeah, well,
after
you can't
a few
question
months.
his truth.
Exactly. Germany is at the forefront of this kind of thing in Europe. They have a reputation for some of the most horrific things like that.
If you remember, I had to look this up because I forgot what member of Pink Floyd actually had gotten caught, but Pete Townsend was arrested in 2003 after he used his credit card to access a site selling images of child sex abuse. And the reason that he told investigators that he had accessed that website, it was for research purposes.
Of course.
The same reason when I used to book guests for the Saucecast, I would follow all of the girls on Instagram, and my wife would go, "Why are you following all these cam girls?" And I would go, "Hey, it's research for work." But those women were of age. I want to make that clear. They were of age. But I can't imagine that as a parent, it's so... You see these children, right? They are so innocent. And my 14-year-old's not innocent anymore. I know that. Like today it happened. As I was leaving the house to leave to go to work, I went to say goodbye and I opened his bedroom door and it was locked. And I went, "What are you doing in there?" Knowing what he was doing in there. At 14, I know what a young teenager is doing. At one point, he was my wholesome young sweet boy. Now he's a gross pervert. That's what happens. But my 5-year-old is so sweet and so innocent. And I can't imagine being in a position where I could make laws to protect that innocence, and I choose to do the exact opposite.
That's what I don't understand. Bipartisan, whatever, it shouldn't be an issue on left or right side. We all should be in agreement to protect children.
But they've made it that way.
What's the argument for it, though?
Well, so Connor, you have the Magnus stuff?
Yes, that's the carve-out that they're trying to say. All the people who are defending the bill are saying, oh, it was just to protect parents and teachers and victims. But
what?
Because they're saying, if the teacher downloads it to show it to the cops, they could technically have charges brought against them. Okay, well,
so
then
they
just
still
don't
get
bring
3
the charges,
months for
man.
it? Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just don't charge people who are innocent.
Do they have
my
the ability to make that decision on a case-by-case basis in Germany, or is it a blanket prosecution no matter what?
It's very unclear. This is the problem with a vaguely worded bill. But in effect, what it does, you can't even judge it based on the text of the bill. You judge it based on the effect. What it says is all people in possession of child pornography are now committing misdemeanors and not felonies. And like I mentioned, this has been an ongoing thing for several years now. But it goes back way, way further than that.
Oh, boy.
This is hardly Germany's first run-in with the absolute worst degeneracy known to humankind. Quick history lesson for you guys, if you're not big on studying things around the turn of the century. The Weimar Republic, which was the government of Germany formed after the end of World War I, 1918 to 1933. This was, the Germans were defeated by the Allies. Their government was completely restructured. Kaiser Wilhelm abdicated, and this was the new, more democratic form of government that was put in place. Hyperinflation and political extremism were rampant from day one, where basically all their money was worthless. They were being gutted by having to pay reparations to all the countries they invaded that, they ended up not paying off until 10, 15 years ago. That they had debt that lingered until very recently. And then they were decimated by the Great Depression as well once that went global. It was a problem that basically wiped out their society and their culture. We have this book here called The Europeans by a guy named Luigi Barzini. This is a travel book that was written during the time of the Weimar Republic. It was, I believe, last published in edition in the 80s. But this guy was a travel writer. He went to all different kinds of countries around Europe. This book has a section on Germany during the time of the Weimar Republic. It's a short chapter, but I want to specifically call attention to this one section where he talks about what it was like to walk around the city there. Quote, "There were men dressed as women, women dressed as men or little schoolgirls, women in boots with whips, boots and whips in different colors, sizes, shapes, promising different passive or active divestments. I saw pimps offering anything to anybody, little girls, little boys, robust young men, or I suppose animals. Time-saving frissions of all, as it allowed you to enjoy... Backing up. The story went around that a male goose, of which one cut the neck at the ecstatic moment, would give you the most delicious, economical, and time-saving frisson of all, as it allowed you to enjoy sodomy, bestiality, homosexuality, necrophilia, and sadism at one stroke. Gastronomy, too, if one could eat the goose afterwards. It's known that you could buy a child prostitute in Weimar, Germany for just a couple dollars on most street corners. It was a hotbed for the early pornography industry, and every other kind of horrific thing you could think of was going on the streets of the Weimar Republic. And Barzini continues, I couldn't help wondering where all these monsters had come from, which Germany had generated them. Had they been there all the time, and if so, where had they been hiding? To be sure, under the parade ground perfection of Wilhelmian Germany, as under the impeccable appearance of Edwardian Britain, there had always been some concealed corruption of one kind or another. Scandals had occasionally broken out in public, a famous homosexual in the Kaiser's entourage, or had been murmured about with raised eyebrows in upper-class drawing rooms, but distinguished Germans and Englishmen had resigned from exalted positions and fled the country to live in a delectable, perpetual, and obscure exile. But both countries had been healthy and wholesome as one, or as a whole. Right here, that changed. The things that were kept in back rooms during the old monarchies changed around the turn of the century to this. And most of that would not have been possible without a man named Magnus Hirschfeld. He was a German Jewish guy who was a physician, a sexologist, philosopher, and doctor. He was known for all kinds of genius-level research that he did beginning in the early 1900s. He was, as I mentioned, a gay Jewish guy, which ended up, not being the ideal thing to be in Germany in the later years of his life. But during the Weimar period, he operated Europe's first gender transition clinic. He was one of the first researchers into gender transitions. It's called the Institute for Sexual Research. It opened in 1919. He was one of the first people to float the idea of gender fluid and third sexes and things existing that were outside the male-female category. He coined the term transvestite. And this is a post from Scientific American, a magazine that is absolute trash. They've also defended cannibalism and incest, but that's not today's story. Go back to my video from a few months ago on why you should hate journalists if you want more on them. But the first gender affirmation surgeries took place in the 1920s at a Berlin clinic that employed transgender technicians and nurses and was headed by a gay Jewish man. The Nazis destroyed it in their first book burning. This is a quote from their article. The Institute would ultimately house an immense library on sexuality, gathered over many years and including many rare books and diagrams and protocols for male-to-female surgical transitions. In addition, psychiatrists for therapy, he hired a guy who was a gynecologist, and together with surgeon Edwin Gorbrandt, they performed male-to-female surgeries that in German literally translates to transformation of genitals. This occurred in stages: castration, penectomy, vaginoplasty, which they still practice today. Patients would also be prescribed hormone therapy, allowing them to grow natural breasts and softer features. This is a picture of one of their patients that they performed these operations on.
Yikes.
So that's man to woman, correct?
Yes, correct. At the time, they couldn't do woman to man. They didn't have the technology yet. It hasn't improved since then. And
we're making so much progress.
And to clarify, one of the surgeons, who helped carry these operations out, after the Nazis rose to power in the early 30s, he was employed at a concentration camp doing experiments on the inmates there.
Stop.
So the guy who kind of rose to prominence doing gender transitions became a Nazi scientist at a concentration camp.
What level of hell do you think he's?
Yeah, which just goes to show
The innermost.
It's always the same thing. Brutal medical experimentation on unsuspecting people. That's pretty much how that works. But when the Nazis officially took power in 1933, one of the first acts of property destruction they ever carried out was destroying the library at the institute that Magnus Hirschfeld founded. They burned all of his literature. They destroyed his textbooks. They destroyed records of how to do this. And I know the attack that's going to come. I'm not trying to defend Nazi ideology here. I'm just saying this was early on what they were pushing against. Before the Nazis went full-on National Socialist and tried to eradicate Jews and all the other horrific things they did, what they were doing was primarily pushing back against the unrestrained, degenerate behavior of the Weimar Republic. It had eroded their culture and turned it into where you had child prostitutes and male-to-female gender transitions.
So let me ask you a question. What it seems like is that what led or what leads to where we're heading with Germany reducing the punishment for child pornography would be this, like you said, a slow eradication of moral sexuality, I guess, which starts with this transgendered movement. Okay, so if we look at that and we go, okay, well, look at what happened in Germany with transgenderism, and now look 80 years later, 90 years later, 100 years later, and how they view child pornography. It's a slow culture shift, but it made that way. If we're applying that same logic to this, then when people refer to people now in America who stand against these type of gender mutilation surgeries and they say, well, those people are Nazis. Are they correct? Do you get what I'm saying? In one scenario, we're taking what happened in Germany and we're applying it to what is happening now and saying, hey, look, this could be happening here in the United States. In the same argument, could the people that are looking at people like me who have a problem with drag queen bingo and don't want my 5-year-old to learn about transgenderism, I want him to learn about being a boy. I'm sorry, is that weird that I want my 5-year-old son to play with boy toys and learn to be a man? People that think like that, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Am I making
Rob,
any fucking sense, or have I lost my mind?
It's like what you just said before, the Democratic Party left you. So it's like, as Kelly said, why does it have to be a left-wing thing or a right-wing thing? Why can't it just be pedophilia is bad? But when one party gets so extreme that they consider anyone else who attacks them to be an extremist or a fascist or a Nazi or whatever.
Which is, okay, that's where I'm going.
And the center no longer exists because they capture all the mainstream institutions and bring them over to that side. Then everyone in the middle is forced to join the other side, which is the right-wing side. But then what if that right-wing side decides that the other side has gotten so extreme that it needs to become extreme in order to fight them? And what you have then is two absolute
extremes.
poles, communism and fascism. And that is what World War II was, because the Communist Party was actually stronger in Germany than it was in Russia. Actually, Arthur Zimmermann, who was a German in the Weimar Republic government, allowed Lenin to go back to Russia during World War I, and that is when when Lenin kicked off the Bolshevik Revolution, which started the Soviet Union.
And
so
interviews with
weaponized against them.
and so
too.
he weaponized against it because he was like, we'll give them communism and bring down the Russian government. That'll make Germany stronger. 10 years later, communist Russia is all powerful, and they fight Germany in another world war, and the Nazis started. The Nazis really started their party based on fighting the communists who were trying to take over local governments.
That's what I was going to say.
The Spartacist uprising in 1918 was led by Rosa Luxemburg and Edward Bernstein, I believe, and Karl Kautsky. And they were socialist communists who took over a town. And then World War I veterans were like, we're just going to take matters into our own hands. These socialists, we're going to take them down. Those veterans who teamed up to take down the radical, they were literally Antifa, because Antifa is a German thing. That was started to fight against the Nazis later by these communists and anarchists. Those World War I patriotic veterans who took down the socialists, they were the Freikorps, the paramilitary group, which later became the military arm of the Nazi Party.
Interviews with captured Nazi soldiers during World War II, when people asked, or the Allies were asking them what they thought they were doing, almost all of them, up until the very late stages of the war, were under the impression everything they were doing, both domestically and internationally, was to stop communists. They didn't mention Jews, they didn't mention gypsies and homosexuals and every other group that the Nazis are known for going after. They thought they were purging communists from German society. And so much of what they were doing, especially early on, was this reaction to degenerate, communist-backed cultural degradation.
Yeah, so but when things become irrational like that, it's easy. Now the Germans have all the power, like the Nazis have all the power, then the lunatics at the top of that party can just start experimenting. Like maybe we'll run experiments on people. We'll start
sew kids together and stuff.
But those
Pendulum
people-
swings back too far.
Those people should not be the leaders of that party.
Exactly, but
People like you that might have been left needs to call out and be like, no, we are all in agreement that we need to protect children and this is not okay, and take your party back.
But Rob, think about it this way. Imagine if when your 5-year-old is at school, somebody comes along and indoctrinates him with transgenderism. He decides he's a girl. He goes through all the stages. It destroys your family as he's doing it. He wants to medically transition and socially transition when he gets old enough, and all the things they're trying to do to kids under 18. They deny it's happening, but it is happening. It's been proven dozens of times. And he goes through all that. What do you think that would do to you on the inside? What do you want to do to the people responsible for that?
Well,
that would push you into a much more extreme category.
Well, you look at what's going on with when you look at what's going on in Gaza and people calling it a genocide, and they talk about the thousands, the tens of thousands of women and children who have died in Israel's response to October 7th, you look at that and you go, okay, well, if I'm a man in Palestine, if I'm in Gaza, and my family, I've minded my own business, I've done my job, I go to work, I pay my bills, I follow the rules, I live in this open-air prison, but I abide by the rules of the open-air prison. I'm not throwing rocks at Israel. I'm not going up to kids wearing yarmulkes and kicking them in the face. I mind my own business. And all of a sudden, my house gets carpet bombed and my family dies inside of it. Am I going to go, you know what? Well, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah.
Or am I going to go, I want justice. I want revenge. Yeah. It's taking normal people and turning them into monsters.
Or
because what you're doing to their families.
Exactly. Imagine you're an Israeli who's always been nice to your Palestinian neighbors. You don't have any particular issue with them. And then Hamas comes in and does what they did. And suddenly you have, I guess that we do kind of have to go over that. That's how two sides reach a point where they can never compromise on anything or figure it out. There's no way back from that. These conflicts just keep happening. And like you said, it's understanding what happened in Germany and the parallels to what is happening today. Because Scientific American, again, draws that parallel as they conclude their story about how great Magnus Hirschfeld's clinic was. I'll leave us with this. The future doesn't always guarantee progress. Even as time moves forward and the story of the Institute for Sexual Research sounds like a warning to our present moment. Current legislation, and indeed calls even to separate trans children from supportive parents, bears a striking resemblance to those terrible campaigns against so labeled aberrant lives. Goes on to, it bashes Florida. It bashes evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins for criticizing Rachel Dolezal and saying that trans people are just like her. And then
she was transracial, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's saying, Richard Dawkins was saying transgender people are just the same. Like
Rachel Dolezal, pull that back up real quick. How do you pronounce her last name?
Rachel Dolezal, a civil rights activist who poses as a black woman.
At that kind of stuff, you have to look and go, okay, well. Yeah. Like, remember, finding the funny, right? That is lunacy right there, that she's a civil rights activist.
Who's not actually black.
She's transracial. Mm-hmm. Yes. And how dare you for stating otherwise?
Exactly.
So you lose all credibility when you make a statement like that.
Back to the article. Looking back on the story of Hirschfeld's clinic, his protocols not only for surgery, but for a trans-supportive community of care, for mental, physical healing, and for social change. It's hard not to imagine a history that might have been. What future might have been built from a platform where sexual intermediaries were thought of in more just terms? Still, these pioneers and their heroic sacrifices helped to deepen a sense of pride and of legacy for LGBTQ plus communities worldwide. As we confront oppressive legislation today, may we find hope in the history of the Institute and a cautionary tale in the Nazis who are bent on erasing it.
Oh my.
So what they are saying, and this magazine doesn't speak for everyone who thinks this way, but it certainly is a thing that's echoed by them. If you disagree with what the Hirschfeld Clinic did, if you disagree with transgenderism, if you disagree with gender ideology, you are no different than the Nazis. And that's the problem with a very shallow two-dimensional understanding of history, is that when Nazi just immediately equals bad, and you understand absolutely nothing about why it happened, it's going to happen again. And for people who are very, very concerned about the return of Nazism, they are certainly doing their damnedest to act like Weimar Germany. Yeah. So
Well,
clearly they learned nothing either.
It sounds like the writer of that article for Scientific America, is that what it is? It sounds like that person needs a head transplant. And that leads us to our next topic. Thank you, Connor, for enlightening us on German transgenderism and the history of it. And now we'll move on to a different type of surgery, head transplants. Kelly, what do you have?
Yeah, speaking of body parts, there will be very soon in the future head transplants. This video came out from I think it's called BrainBridge. BrainBridge released this video. It's an 8-minute video where it graphically depicts a head transplant, and they say that this could happen in the next 8 years. They can take your head off of your body and put it on another younger body, and you will be able to operate it within a certain amount of time afterwards. So I sped it up and I shortened it, but we're going to start it. I don't know how much we're going to watch, Andres, but the video, it's like 3 minutes and it's sped up, but I want you just to start to see this video of head transplants.
The procedure begins by preparing the donor and recipient bodies. The donor is a brain-dead patient who has a functional body with vital organs in good condition, while the recipient is the patient whose head will be transplanted onto the new body. General anesthesia is administered to both the recipient and the donor. Both patients undergo tracheotomy, with a tube inserted into the trachea to provide respiratory support and facilitate mechanical ventilation. Our proprietary artificial plasma solution is administered to both the recipient and the donor. This solution is designed to keep the brain and body oxygenated, prevent clotting, and allow for safe operation at low temperatures. The recipient's head and the donor body are cooled to approximately 5 degrees Celsius to reduce potential brain damage during the detachment. Guided by advanced real-time molecular level imaging systems, BrainBridge carefully separates the heads from the two bodies with the help of a specialized surgical technique that preserves the spinal cord and key blood vessels. Deep incisions are carefully made around the neck to expose the necessary structures, including the carotid, vertebral arteries, jugular veins, and spine. With the help of specialized AI algorithms, BrainBridge tracks both muscles and nerves during surgery to facilitate seamless reattachment. Next, incisions are made in the trachea, esophagus,
That's the
veins,
part of your body that gets cut off. You get drained of blood.
Oh my God.
Your head gets drained of blood, and then it gets put onto the other body. But that's not all. After they have to sew it back on,
rewarms the recipient's head and provides it with oxygenated blood. With the help of its ultra-precision surgical instruments, BrainBridge begins reconnecting the spinal cord, esophagus,
yeah, they got to
trachea,
reconnect
nerves,
all
blood
that
vessels,
stuff.
and other tissues.
Hold on.
This step facilitates communication between the brain and the new body. The machine utilizes microsurgery techniques and delicate microscopic adjustments
blood's
to ensure
gotta
the
go
proper
back
alignment
to your
and fusion of
head.
the spinal cord and other tissues. To help reconnect the severed neurons, BrainBridge uses a proprietary
This is
chemical
some
adhesive.
stuff. Okay, we can stop here. I can describe the rest.
It's like
If
face
you
off.
show the next graphic, Andres, you also have to do a face transplant. So you saw how they took off your neck, right? And then they put you on the other body.
Unfortunately, I saw
They
that.
will also. So now that your head's on the other body, they take off your face. It's your brain and your insides that got put on. Right? So you keep the head and you have your face gets put in. Right? Okay. It's crazy. So it's a head transplant, a face transplant.
Why do you transplant your face if you?
Yeah, if they're cutting your head and moving it to another body.
You got to watch the video.
I don't
We'll
wanna
link
gloss
it. It's
over, like,
crazy.
something
Face
at
off
the
of Nicolas
beginning,
Cage and what's his name?
Yeah, like the thing they mentioned at the beginning of the video though is that it's killing a guy.
No.
Like, it's
So
the brain dead, the brain dead guy with
so
healthy organs.
the other body is a brain dead or body organ donor, right?
Okay, so he died, or he has brain damage, and he wants to gift his body.
So there are a lot of people when they die, they give their bodies to science. I have a friend with a dear friend that sadly passed away, and she donated her body to science. I'm wondering, would somebody like, a lot of people do that. I'm wondering if somebody like that that's donating their body to science would be someone that they would experiment on. She was an older woman, but like, how many young people have a perfectly good body that didn't die by a car accident or a heart attack or drug abuse or whatever available, right? So stick with me here really quick. We're going to ask all those questions. Hold on. So
I'm burning up.
one of the several major obstacles to overcome in medicine's inability so far is to adequately repair nerve and spinal cord damage. So BrainBridge, who released this video, is actively working on this procedure that will be completely done by robots. AI will do the surgery. It'll learn from its surgeries and do better in the future. I think the recovery period is like they keep you in a coma for 4 weeks, and then you have to there's videos about how you have to train your body to operate again. Your brain will start connecting. It's super, super bizarre. I don't know if any of you have seen Altered Carbon. Andres, you could show the next one. It doesn't have audio, but this show was really great in that you could take out someone's like consciousness and put it in another body, and you have that body, but you have your memories. And we've all seen, other movies and stuff with kind of versions of this, but you could just be in someone else's body. There's another show called Upload where you could take your consciousness and upload it to like a digital world, and you don't need your body anymore. If you think about all those kinds of movies, and if you think about the future of mankind and how we love to innovate and create stupid, crazy shit, what is our future going to be like? So now, remember I just said again, there aren't very many young bodies just hanging out there, right? So what would need to happen in order for that? So in China, there's the what do we call them?
CRISPR?
Uyghurs.
Oh, Uyghurs.
Uyghurs?
Yes.
So they are kind of targeted. They have that camp that they all live in, the prisons.
Well,
so,
it's a concentration camp, right?
Yeah.
Let's try not
beating around the bush. Yeah.
So they have a concentration camp in China where they have the Uyghurs, and
Make
they
our iPhones.
And are they experimenting on the Uyghurs?
They've already been doing that for a long time.
So they take advantage of these people, and they kill them. They tell them they can't procreate, they can't do anything, and so there are reports that they also happen to be taking their organs and selling them on the black market. That's why, or just taking them and using them, and that's why surgeries have gone up and more availability has increased, is because they're using these people. So this is my question. I have a couple questions for you guys. A, would you get a head transplant if you needed it and could afford it? B, if this becomes possible in 8 years, so in our very relatively young adult lives, this becomes a possibility, what do you think is going to happen to the future of our society? Because I for sure think that crime is going to go up. People are going to be murdered for their organs and bodies. People that can afford it, they do the shit they do with our political system. What are they going to do just so that they can live forever?
Well, so it's interesting that Walt Disney, I heard, he actually froze his head when he died with the hopes of being put on a monkey someday, but even better than that.
A monkey?
I think
he wanted to put his head on a monkey?
Hey guys, I'm
he
back.
anticipated that in the future that he would be able to put his head onto some sort of body, I think a monkey.
I don't think it was a monkey,
No.
but I'm pretty sure I've read...
his head's frozen somewhere, though, right?
I think his whole body's frozen somewhere in the hopes that he can be recreated.
You want to hear my...
So he called that right.
my new favorite theory I heard somebody float a little while ago. They made the movie Frozen so that people would stop talking about it, because now every time you Google Disney Frozen, the movie comes up with the princesses, not stories about Disney kept in a cryo.
I've heard that too. From my mom. And my mom is in QAnon. So I've also heard that same theory before. Would I have a head transplant? Face? Yes. If I could get Brad Pitt, that'd be so awesome. Can you imagine how cool your life would be if you looked like Brad Pitt?
Rob, we have hair transplants right now.
I don't need the hair. I need at that point, that's putting lipstick on a pig. If you try and put hair on this and think it's going to fix it. I want Brad Pitt's face.
You'd keep, again, it's confusing in the video, but you'd keep your face, but
no.
everything else besides your brain and those nerves and stuff and the spinal cord that attaches to the other person's spinal cord, that's yours.
So I could put my head on Brandon's body.
Yes.
Okay, then yes. I want that. That'd be so cool. I need to wear tight shirts like that all the time. Fuck yeah.
And you can keep his hair.
Oh, and his hair.
Well, he's just got a haircut.
Well, I bet his chest hair looks just like his.
I want to read some other really crazy things to you.
Well, real quick, while you're doing that, the future.
Yeah.
What scares me is this the way that the elite here we go, conspiratorial. Is this the way that the elite continues to live forever? We've seen Brian Johnson, right? Yep. Brian Johnson's like swapping blood with his son, and allegedly
3D printing organs too.
Yeah, we did that a couple episodes ago, where he's sitting there talking to Tucker, and he's saying Tucker's like, "Aren't you afraid that God's gonna smite you down?" He's like, "No." No, I'm
So there's already this movement among some of the people within that have wealth where they're trying to extend their lives forever. Is this the way to do it?
And did we
Hey,
say
you know
Peter
what?
Thiel
My
with the
body
blood?
craps out, so I'll just move myself to a new host. And then at that point, if we're not, that's what we are. We're hosts. We're not even actual humans anymore. We're just the carrier for them to continue living
Well,
on.
that's actually the plot of that show that Kelly mentioned, Altered Carbon. I really loved that show, at least the first season. The second
The
one
first season was the
kind
best.
of meh. But the whole point is that your body is no longer you. They call bodies sleeves because everybody just exists as this little disc. It gets inserted into the back of a body. Now, the elites have access to clones of their own body, so they always look like themselves, even though they live hundreds and hundreds of years, and they basically can just replicate themselves whenever. But there's a whole thing in the show of people going around and they kill other people to get better bodies.
Younger bodies, more fit bodies, ones that don't have diseases. And again, this is to help people that have cancer or whose bodies they can't operate or they're paralyzed. But what's going to happen to innocent people in the future? Illegal organ transplants are up to 10%. 10% of transplants are illegal, 75% involving kidneys due to high demand and low supply. The illegal organ trade generates $600 million to $1.2 billion annually. Okay. Kidney transplants cost about $150,000. Heart transplants can be expensive over $500,000. Traffickers exploit people like this. So I am very scared that, I mean, this would be great medical science to protect someone. But like, think about it. Like, this is the stuff of movies and TV shows. What if the president has cancer and we're like, who wants to donate their body to the president of the United States? You know, I forget where it is. I think it's in China again. No, sorry, Iran. In Iran, they had a what's it called? Like a policy or whatever. You got paid if you like donated a kidney or an organ, whatever. And so available surgeries were able to go up. The problem is that this would target really poor people that need money. So they're like, okay, this is what they do. They give an organ for $5,000, which might not make as much of a difference to you and me. We're like, no, we'll keep our body parts, but someone that might need that money will give their body. So this would need to be so controlled.
Yeah.
And then what's to say that someone wouldn't live forever? What happens if a king of a country lives forever and they're crazy or they're bad, they become a bad person with all that power? Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, this freaks me out.
I saw a futuristic TV show too once where the whole concept of it was there was a police force that was preventing people from having kids because they were at this point where people were able to live forever because of this technology where you could like stop your aging.
That's
movie In Time.
Love, Death, Robots.
Yeah, I love Death, Robots.
There's a movie
Great show.
In Time where you could only live to 25 years old and then you could like barter or exchange time. Again, upload. So here's the other thing. Would you get a head transplant and then would you donate anything, your body or for science? Would you, if it was an option right now, would you say, yeah, I'll give my body for this thing? Or that show Upload I was talking about, where it's kind of the same thing. They just take your consciousness, they download it, and they put it in a virtual world that you've already paid for and live forever. Would you do that?
Not for science, but I am an organ donor on my license.
Oh, cool.
My son's mother, I have two baby mamas. I'm white trash. My 14-year-old's mother actually needed a kidney transplant. She was 37 when she was diagnosed with a thing called FSGS, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. I can't.
Wow.
The idea that I still know that in my head, it's crazy to me. But she was like, we saw her wasting away, and it was very scary. It was scary for my son. It was scary for me, to the point where like we were considering getting tested to see if we would be matches. Not my 14-year-old, but myself. Even my 5-year-old's mother. We discussed it. Luckily, by the grace of God, there was a 18, 19-year-old that unfortunately passed away in a car accident, but it was a perfect match, and she got a kidney transplant. She now lives a great life. I watched someone on death's door, right, be able to survive. I have 3 children. My daughter passed away in a car accident, and she was 6 weeks old when she died. We were able to donate her heart so that her heart saved somebody else's life. We donated her eyes because when a child is that young, it's very rare that a child dies at that age and was full term. So when she was 6 weeks old, she passed away in a car accident. We were able to save another child's life with the heart. We were to give another child vision with her eyes. So for me, like, of course I want organ donation. I'm a huge fan of it. Would I donate my body to science? Absolutely not. I saw a story where a guy donated his mother's body to science, and then they blew her up with a Lockheed rocket.
Oh my God.
Her body wasn't used for science or used to try and further other people's lives. They used it as a weapons test.
I have a friend
so
who
for
went
me, I'm
to-
like, no, I won't do science, but yes, for medical, absolutely.
I have a friend who went to med school, and they spent a semester in the cadaver lab, like med students do. But those are all bodies that have been donated to science. Imagine if you're the one that goes to the lab at some cut-rate med school and a kid gets a C on the project where you're supposed to, remove the spleen. Oh, he botched it. C minus. Okay, great. There goes Gam on the table. That's, Rob, what you talked about. That's, first of all, heartbreaking to hear. But you were able to do something like that where you touched the lives of all these other people who were able to benefit from that. But that was a very personal and specific thing. It was not commoditized. You didn't take parts, or like people don't take donated body parts and sell them for material benefit, and then that person gives it out to the highest bidder. It's when you commoditize the human body and the human existence that it becomes a problem.
That's where I stand on that.
Think of Neuralink, like we've mentioned. For the guy who currently has Neuralink, where this guy is a quadriplegic, and now he's able to move a computer mouse and like play a game of chess with his brain. Amazing.
I cried.
Yeah,
I cried and then showed my 14-year-old to go, we're witnessing history.
But that's like
to me, because
a healthy person.
And that guy even said, now I know that there's been some software issues with the original patient, but he was the one that said, I had no reason, like I'd get up, I had no reason to live.
Yeah.
And now I actually have a reason. So Elon Musk, say what you will, was able to give purpose to a person. And that's the first patient that he's been able to do that with.
Yeah,
These people that are getting the head transplants also have, at the end of the video, guys, watch it. It'll be linked in the description, but they have a thing they put on and they can control stuff. Even after the transplant, especially during the recovery period, they can control like chairs moving up to them so that they can sit down if they're having a hard time moving. It's really, really crazy.
So they get Neuralink too.
Yeah, basically.
A twofer.
This whole thing feels like really godless though when you get into it. I mean, it's really cool to be able to get into a healthier body if you're in a decrepit, like decaying body. But at the point where you start switching souls around like that, is that like crossing some sort of Rubicon?
Let me ask you. Okay, when it comes to the religious aspect of it, all right. The argument, okay, well, we're all made in God's image, and should we mess with that? Well, what if a guy is fine? Like, look at Christopher Reeve, the guy that was Superman, got thrown from a horse in his 40s, spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. So do you look at that and you go, okay, it's messing with nature if you were to give that guy the ability to walk again? And if so, is that messing with nature in God's image? Is that messing with what God intended? Or if you do that, you give the person life again. You give that person a purpose. You give them something to be able to do again. So are you now disregarding God's will by giving them that ability?
No, I'm in support of a situation like that where somebody's injured and can switch into a new situation.
But what if God meant for that accident to happen? There was a reason for that accident to happen, and now you're taking away from God's purpose. Like, right, everything, if you, like, this is where I struggle, because I very much fight religion. And it's not like I hate it or I hate people. I just don't understand it, right? So for me, things that I don't understand, what's your natural, you resist, right? When you don't understand things that are scarier and bigger than you. So when it comes to religion, I look at that and I go, okay, well, is it going against God to fix him, or is it going against God to keep him the way that he was? Because maybe God meant for him to get injured and thrown off that horse. If so, for what? What's the purpose?
Maybe God meant for us to discover this technology, but I was going to go ahead.
Okay. I totally support that. We have these big, beautiful minds, and God has left us this entire world to discover and create. And if we create science, I don't think there's necessarily a fight between science and religion. I think they have the same basic principles and idea. We just observe it differently as humans. So I 100% think that we should be able to create stuff, but there's a morality that goes with it as well that makes it more difficult to draw the line. I would do organ donation for sure.
Yeah.
I would do something like that to save a daughter, to save a mom, to do whatever. I would do that. Would I want my whole being minus my face to be given to somebody else? I don't know that I'm comfortable with that. Because a mind is just as beautiful. Like, there are people that are paralyzed. Their mind is just as beautiful. They can't do as much. It's really difficult. And then would I preserve my consciousness forever? Especially with the way AI is going, I just feel like it would be my legacy would be totally destroyed after a couple hundred years if I went up digitally, and then everybody could use my voice
after being dead. There's so many things that they would find, and part of the human, I think humans forget trauma.
Yes.
In order to survive. Imagine now having that trauma captured on 1080p 4K that you can stream at any point on any device. That's a scary thought.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so much evil in the world stems from the fear of death, and that so many people cling on to power and cling on to the promises of technology and make technology do terrible things because they're afraid of dying. And I think death needs to be embraced more by our culture. Obviously, we want to avoid death as much as we can, but death is a fact of life, and I think death gives life its meaning, because if you were to just live forever, well, then what's the rush to do anything at all? And then also, what's the end goal? Because then it's no longer about having kids to, give a new generation to the earth, and there won't be any new people. It will just be the same exact people with the same exact thoughts, and everything, I think, will become as stale and boring as generic mass commodities can become.
Yeah.
And so I think that all of this stuff needs to be rejected, and I'm pro science in the sense of discovering things about the natural world, but I am against this accelerated extremist technological takeover of the globe, this extreme technology, extreme science. I don't think it's good, and I think we need to be more comfortable with the fact that life is finite.
And speaking of commodities, we're going to shift topics to gas. Yes. A great way. Thank you so much, Shane, for those enlightening words
today.
Let's go to Brandon Aceto. He is the researcher, and actually, Brandon, you're going to be streaming live after this.
Yes, I am.
Where can people find your channel?
My channel at Brandon Aceto on YouTube. Me and Humberto are going to be doing a live stream shortly after this episode ends.
ACETO,
Yep.
Aceto on YouTube. So after this ends, your enjoyment continues with the Humberto and Brandon show. So make sure you go over, subscribe to his channel, and watch. But right now, Brandon, you're going to inform us on Joe Biden and what's going on with the oil reserves. I saw that he's lowering the cost, or trying to affect the cost of oil going into the election.
Right. So remember in 2022, oil got to be around $4.50 a gallon. It got extremely abnormally bad.
Well, I mean, even right now, I think I passed the gas. I drive a Tesla. I'm not bragging. I do. So I don't really pay attention to gas very often. And I went and I filled up my Jeep the other day because my wife needed to borrow it. And it was like $70 to fill up my Jeep. And I went, how expensive is gas? And then I looked at the sign. It was $3.60.
Yeah.
And I went, that's not nearly as high as I remember it being. How much was I spending 2 years ago when I would fill up that Jeep?
So 2022, it peaked. It was around $4.50, $4.70, and in California, it got all the way up to $7. But then, Biden was worried about the midterm, so he drained our strategic petroleum reserve, which, today I'm bringing this up because he did another 1 million barrels yesterday to get ahead of the 4th of July because oil's been creeping back up. But go to this next chart, and you could see the drastic impact. So the red line at the bottom is the rate of change for our strategic petroleum reserve. This is from Zero Hedge. Then that line at the top is the total amount inside of our strategic petroleum reserve. So this is for emergencies and power outages. It's our last reserve.
I hear Joe Biden's lowering oil prices. I go, cool. All right, gas is going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
The problem with that is what you're trying to explain right now, right?
Yeah,
so anybody that's like, oh, okay, yeah, good, lower those prices, Biden. Why is that bad?
Because the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is for emergency situations in which we suddenly lose access to oil. We have a war that breaks out, and we need to fuel our military fleet.
There's only 4 of them ongoing right now, global conflicts that we're somewhat involved in proxy wars. wars.
All
but
of them
okay.
threatening to come here.
No worries.
So this is supposed to be like the last reserve that you don't touch, that you don't even look at, you don't even think about until it's an absolute emergency. But he used it for political reasons. Now it's empty. And now he's going into spots that like aren't even the main one, and he's draining those. So he did another 1 million barrels this past week to get ahead of 4th of July because it always picks up during the summer.
Do you remember when we did the episode with Pat about the oil
Yep.
and there was only 40 years left of oil in the world at the current rate we're using it?
Yep.
What does this do now?
But that's at the current
Allegedly.
rate. Hold on, but that's at the current rate that we're using it.
That's also
And if
allegedly.
he's escalating it and lowering, if Biden's escalating it in America, which uses a lot of freaking gas and is lowering prices, making it more available, we use it more, how will that affect the...
Well, I mean, that's ultimately, I feel like it's a drop in the bucket compared to the long-term thing. It's just more frightening from like a geopolitical standpoint where it's like, it's imagine if we didn't have any ammo left and we're like on the brink of potential war, like
Hold on, but didn't you say that we're at like a few weeks ago, we did an episode where you talked about the shortage of ammunition that's going on in the country. So we are already short on weapons.
Yes, very much so.
And we're also short on, because you look at the recruitment numbers for the military and they are down as well. So we're short on people to fight and weapons for them to fight with, and now we're going to be depleted of gasoline to fill the vehicles to go fight.
And this is the problem with printing money too, because yes, we're the reserve currency. We can print money at will, and everybody will buy our bonds. But you can't produce weapons and oil and people at the same rate as you can produce new money. So that's where the chickens come home to roost. Finally. Sorry.
Also, to clarify, with the 1 million barrels he just sold off, that's like enough for America's current rate of fuel consumption for like 2.5 days.
Yeah.
Like I think the strategic reserve he just emptied, it's like 42 million gallons or something. Like each barrel is 42 gallons. So that's 42 times a million. So 42 million gallons. That's about what the entire country consumes in like 2 to 3 days. So it's not going to be that.
Just to help
it's just to help a little bit.
Or the 42? Like you're saying, like the one that you just did yesterday.
Yeah, the one he just did yesterday.
Yeah, it's a small amount.
It's barely anything, and it's going to drop.
He's grabbing the scraps there because he already did the big one. The big one was like would last us a few weeks, but dumping all that on the market's a big deal.
It's going to drop gas by just a couple cents. They're going to make 125 billion off of it, I believe.
Meanwhile, we're more vulnerable.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we can't fuel our jets if we ever had to scramble them to defend our country. But this kind of goes into the fact that like we're putting ourselves in this delicate situation where we don't have to, because he's the one who said that we can't do the Keystone Pipeline, we can't do fracking, and this energy thing is ridiculous in the first place because for political reasons we're ignoring things like nuclear energy and then the hidden technology that we talked about already a few weeks ago. So we're putting ourselves in a vulnerable situation like for the sake of what their political agenda.
It sounds selfish to me. Like this was for safety and just so that gas isn't so expensive and you look better politically, you're going to deplete something that was for security.
But you're not even like, honestly, that it's going to make zero effect on my life what he's doing. And I feel like this is such a small drop in the bucket. Like there's so many other issues that you could be working on that people would pay attention to and notice. This is not the one, right? Like my car insurance went up $400 for my 6-month premium for my Tesla and $100 for my 6-month premium on my Jeep, which means I'm going to be spending between $500 and $600 more every 6 months now for my car insurance, right? My groceries are up 33%.
Yep.
Gas, okay, yes, it's through the roof. People can't even afford their fucking mortgages right now.
Yeah.
My interest rate on my home is 6.5%. I'm not going to be able to refinance that for 3 years if they even do rate cuts, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Which at this point we're talking about not even doing them in 2024.
Well, because the government keeps screwing up their rate cuts. Like they jacked up rate cuts at the fastest rate in 30 years, but the government's still been doing $1.7 trillion deficit spending every year, which is undermining the rate increases. So they're doing it for nothing. They're running in place.
Because they keep spending on fucking Ukraine.
So, okay, here's the problem. So I'm a guy that has, my wife and I both work. My wife works from home. We're a dual income family.
Yep.
Outside of my job here, I've got a few side hustles. I do well, right? I do really well for my limited intellect and my looks. I do really well. I'm not struggling to get by, but I'm at the point where I'm like, man, just imagine how much better my life would be if I wasn't spending 33% more every time I go to the grocery store. Just think of how much better my life would be if my insurance hadn't gone up, how much more money I'd be saving for the future for my children. I'm a guy that's got multiple streams of revenue. How are people who only work one job surviving? How is that even possible right now?
Well, that's why the average person isn't moving out of their parents' house till like age 32 now, you know, and that's why there's all this like socialist crap kicking around young people. Of course, they're furious because it takes 8 years of an average salary to buy an average priced house right now. It took 2 years of an average salary to buy an average priced house in the 70s, and people who are older are saying like, "Oh, what are kids complaining about?" It's like that exactly.
Well, and look, it's my fault that I bought at a 6.5% interest rate, but I have good credit. I bought at the top of the market at the time. At that point, they were like, "Well, interest rates can't go any higher," but I had to move. I had to buy a home for my family. Right now, my mortgage, I have no problem saying this, $2,800 a month. You know how much actually goes to the principal? $425.
Oh,
Me and my
God.
buddy actually calculated, I'm going to spend $600,000 in interest by the time my $420,000 home is paid off. That's an insane. The house is now, I spent over $1 million. And what do I have to show for it? A 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom bath in Lake Worth, Florida. So, like, it's not like, and again, I'm a guy that's doing well, and I am at the point where I'm questioning how other people can even, like when McDonald's is $20. We had a deli, one of the video editors went to Chick-fil-A today, came back, and he had a sandwich, a drink, and a mac and cheese. And I said, and fries. I said, Deli, how much did that cost you? $22. Like, how are people, and the thing is, people like Deli are going and spending it. But I know Deli doesn't have the money to spend $22 every day for 30 days out of a month
That's
to
just
go
one
and purchase.
meal, by the way.
One meal.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the days when I first started driving. I sound like my dad. And I love him. But I remember the day, like when I got my license, gas was $1.25. I remember when it went to $2, and I went, this is insanity. Like now we're talking about $4 gas, and it's not even an issue for some people. I look at to go out and have a meal with my family, right? It used to be, we could, I took my son out to go to Olive Garden. We like to go, just me and my 14-year-old. Every couple of months, I just like to go and take him and talk about life and how things are. Mm-hmm. The last time that we went for a meal for 2 people at the Olive Garden, not even good food. It was $70. I didn't drink. I had a meal, an appetizer, and he had a meal. $70 for 2. So if I wanted to take my wife and my other son with us, we're looking at $150, $200 meal with tip included.
Wow.
How is that? And then I look around, I go, how are people still spending this money? Where is this money coming from? How are people affording to eat?
Credit cards.
Buy now, pay later.
Yes.
Buy now, pay later. And then it's all going to come back to them. And as they were saying on the PBD podcast last week, it's going to lead to a fire sale where people will start selling off all their assets. And I have something I read to Rob before the show. We were talking about this. This is an old 4chan post, believe it or not, from Twitter from 2013.
Okay.
Someone found this and posted it, and it predicts everything about our lives now. It says, there will be no collapse the way some of these people think of it. It's not going to be like the movie Dawn of the Dead or whatever, where one day suddenly shit hits the fan and prices skyrocket and everyone begins to riot. There will be no happening. It's far more insidious than that. Read the poem The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot and you'll understand. You'll just notice that every day, simple things will become a little bit more expensive. Everyone's homes and apartments will start to get smaller. Your work hours will get longer, but your pay will decrease. You'll see family and friends less and find that in time you care less about them. Every day you'll find yourself lowering your standards for everything, work, food, relationships, etc. Job security will no longer exist as a concept. You'll notice houses and apartments shrinking. People will start hanging on to clothing longer and longer. Less people will get married. Even less will have children. People will engross themselves in technological distractions and fantasy while never experiencing the real world. That is the collapse. The reduction of the American man into a feudal serf, incapable of feeling love or hate, incapable of seeing the pitiful nature of his situation for what it is or recognizing his own self-worth.
Well, that goes back to almost everything.
That's from 2013.
And that's what every single person here has talked about in some aspect today, right? You talked about what we've all talked about, the degradation of culture, right? The demasculinization of men. All of these issues seem to play into one direction that seems to already have happened.
Becoming a serf. Yeah, becoming somebody who owns nothing and is happy.
Yep.
Someone who should be content with their lot. And actually, maybe the past wasn't even that good to begin with. They start gaslighting you, telling you, the past, there were all these problems. There was like discrimination and all this. But it's like, no, I remember in a time when I was alive, so like not when, before the Civil Rights Act or whatever, where things were, we both had rights and things were cheap. It's not like we have to have one or the other. It's like, no, we can actually say sometimes the past was better. Like you were just saying, I remember my parents complaining that McDonald's was $20 for 4 people. They were complaining about it being $20 for 4 people. And you just said deli bought Chick-fil-A and it was $20 for 1 person. And that's like, I'm not that old. So it's like, what the hell? You know, like
how is it
used to be better
so fast?
Not that long ago.
Well, Rob talked about
printing of money.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Rob talked about like, when I started driving, you could get gas for $1.50. But you want to know the other time when gas was close to $1.50, like between $1.50 and $2 a gallon? 4 years ago, under Donald Trump in certain parts of the country. Like, that was not that long ago. And like Shane said, they want you to look at the past and think that even when things look good, it was actually terrible. Look at the 50s when you could afford a 3-bedroom household with a white picket fence and the dog and 2 cars on a single income while the mom stayed home to do stuff with the kids. But they want to tell you, like they were racist and everybody was secretly gay. So that's why it's better now.
Well, they simultaneously started the whole women movement where they encouraged women to start working stuff while they took us off the gold standard. So, and I'm totally fine with taking us off the gold standard because I know we have to grow the economy. But if you're going to start deficit spending, you better send that after good investments to have a good ROI. But we waste money on bullshit and we don't actually drive down the price of basic things that we need. So, food, housing, energy, those things should all be dirt cheap, and that would impact the price of everything. If energy was abundant, clean, free, or almost free, if food, it would make food abundant and dirt cheap compared to what it is right now. And same thing with housing. If those 3 things were driven down from the supply side, that would fix everything.
Also, the environmental argument is pretty stupid when, like you were saying, Brennan, last week, that all these electric cars, like they take so many minerals to make that the net effect on the environment isn't even positive.
Yeah.
So the whole reason why we can't unleash the full potential of America and drill for oil or use nuclear or do any of these other things is because, the environment. But then the electric solution is not actually environmentally friendly.
Exactly.
So the whole thing is just a giant scam.
Yeah, and they're using government subsidies, which is our taxpayer dollars, to siphon money from us to that industry to something they know is going to break in 10 years and not going to be a sustainable answer to what the solution they're trying to solve for.
Also, these electric is made through gasoline, burning gasoline at factories. This is not, electricity isn't just captured out of the air from lightning bolts.
So even Rob's not helping with that.
I'm trying. Me and Greta Thunberg, we're trying to save this planet for you fucks.
She's moved on past environment. She's on to
Palestine
now. She doesn't care. The world can burn for all she cares. But this, Shane mentioned, is just how everything steadily gets worse. And they want you to forget that not only did things used to be good, but it's possible for it to be that way again. But that's why it's important to remember it.
Period.
Remember your history. Like I said, when you forget your history, it's going to happen again. Germany's forgotten what it went through, so they're doing the same thing. We're not learning from them. Future generations might not learn from us, and it will just continue to get worse. But remember that things used to be better. And there's this funny little inspirational quote that I've seen floating around. There's this whole crowd of people just say everything. It is what it is. That's just the response when things are terrible.
It's just like wisdom.
It is what it is. Like they throw it around like that's the perfect answer. You can't change anything. And I rebuke that and say, no, it is the way it is because of the actions of others. And by our own actions, it might be different. We can turn things around, but we have to remember what we're shooting for. We have to have a vision for what we used to be and want to get back to.
On a positive note, I do think AI is going to drive down the price of a lot of these things because it's going to take away the manual, redundant labor that nobody wants to do and crank stuff out at a higher level than we've ever seen.
It's not going to lower the cost of food, houses, and oil.
And it's going to also put those people out of jobs.
If we use it for good.
Well, it's going to lower the cost of those things.
It'll also power the machines that transfer our heads. So there's power in it.
The one thing I can tell you as we wrap up, as life becomes unaffordable, the one beauty that I find, and it's odd to come to this realization this late in life, but capitalism, is that you can go out and earn a buck and you can figure out how to combat this on your own. You can pick up second gigs, you can pick up third gigs, you can reinvent yourself. Patrick talks a lot about that. I remember we had a meeting at the beginning of the year and he said 2024 was the year he was going to reinvent himself, and he challenged all of us to reinvent ourselves. And here I find myself 6 months later in a position where I go, I need to reinvent myself to survive. Will I? Right? I'm okay. I'm okay now. but you read what you just read or hearing what you just read makes me go, hey, this is a long-term plan. And 10, 12 years ago when that was written and it was posted on social media, it was a predictor of where we're at today. So how much further and how much worse can things get? How do I prepare myself to get to be prepared for that if it comes, if it gets worse, if it gets more expensive, if the cost of living gets even more outrageous? Hopefully it doesn't. But I don't see it getting any better under Joe Biden. And I don't think if Joe Biden wins in November that it's going to get better in the next 5 years. So take this opportunity, if you have a side hustle or you can find one, to go and earn for yourself.
Save that money.
Yeah, that's a perfect way. Yeah, Manect is the best way to do that. In fact, I've got a bunch of people that I got to go Manect right now. Nicholas, Kyle Starr, thank you everybody that has Manect. But make sure if you're not on the Manect app, jump on it. I know that there's a QR code we showed at the beginning of the show. Go to Manect.com if you are on an old school computer. Manect.com/leaderboard to keep track of the Manect League Championships. Your chance to win a dinner and cigars with Patrick Bet-David and the home team. And as far as plugs, guys, VT.com is where everybody is at. The Brandon Aceto and Humberto show coming up on the Brandon Aceto channel. So make sure you go and subscribe. Connor and Shane both found at VT.com.
You got that backwards, buddy.
It's Shawner.
That's Shane.
They're the same to me. I
you
love
would
them
think
equally.
you would know this after all this time.
Kelly, where can people find you?
Manect.
Manect.
Or here, producing this show.
Yep, and you can find me on all socials, Rob Show TV. If you have not done so already, please like and subscribe. Link right there. Boom. Thank you, Jeremy. You are the best. To Andres running the computer, Jeremy in the back.
We love you.
Shane, Connor, Kelly, and Brandon. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for hanging out. We will be back live Friday night, 6 p.m. Vinny Oshana returns, so make sure you do as well. See you then.